I'm Andrea Deck, the Senior Program Officer for SRE Network, and I am so excited to welcome you all to our Spring 2024 Field Building Grant process. This is our Grant Seeker Workshop, and it is 1 o'clock on February 8th. I know that there is going to be a recording after, but if you've got questions or things that you'd like to know, let me know as we go through. Please feel free to utilize our chat. I just want to shout out everyone else who's here from our organization today. We've got Julian, Allie, Shayna, and Samantha. Everyone can give a wave. And if you see them in the chat, please feel free to ask them questions. If you're having any tech issues, feel free to reach out. If you've got questions as we go, please feel free to add them in the chat and know that there's some information I want to get through, and I will have time for questions in the end. If something comes up, I'll have one of my staff interrupt me in the middle, but there is time for questions and answer in the end. So today in our agenda, we're going to just talk a little bit about what is SRE, a little bit about our grant making philosophy and history, the 2024 grants process in specificity, and a little bit of a Q&A. Again, this is being recorded, and all of this information is also on the website. We will be dropping links to the website throughout this time, and also saying things that are a little repetitive. That's the goal of this, to make sure that you understand all the things that we're saying in writing, and also to answer any questions that you may have. So let's just dive right in. What is the SRE network? So SRE network is really a network. It's a Jewish network of 175 plus organizations right now, in a shared commitment to safety, respect, and equity for all. We're going to talk a little bit about what is SRE, how we do the work we do, and what some of our goals are. But there's a ton of more information available on the website. So what is SR and E? This is the definition. These are the definitions that we are using in this context. I'm going to refer to all three of these both as safety, respect, and equity, and sometimes as SR and E throughout this presentation, and we do as well throughout all of our paperwork. You can tell when we're talking about our organization because there are no commas. I know that can sometimes be confusing, but in general, this is what we mean when we say these three things, and also it's the name of our organization. So I will try to delineate as I move through this presentation, but if you've got any questions, these are the three principles that I am referring to. So our approach is really trifold. We're going to talk today mostly about community investments, but SRE's approach is network building, resource sharing, and community investments. And we'll talk a little bit about the other two as well. And more than anything, we are a network. We are so excited to support the organizations that are a part of this network and provide resources, community investment through grant making, and support in a series of ways. I'll also mention some of our upcoming events later in this presentation. So focusing a little bit more on community investments, we want to make sure that you know where we're coming from. I'm going to read this slide to you because I think it's very important. And it is that the vision of our community investments is to deeply invest in creating cultural shifts and accountability through investing time, expertise, and resources in catalyzing community-wide change around creating safety, respect, and equity for all. This year, and in all years with our community investments, through our most recent strategic plan, we've really distilled this into two major focus areas: gender-focused efforts to address harassment and equity, including women as a primary target beneficiary population. We're going to talk a lot more about that today, and broader culture change efforts supporting SR and E. Both of those we'll talk a lot more about. In general, our grant-making philosophy is a process expressing our values. It is one of the ways that we build relationships and how we further this work both in impact investing and also seeing how our organizations can continue to thrive. Through grant making, we are aiming to change the field as a whole. We'll talk a lot today about field building, what it means to raise the field. There's terms like ripple effect, trickle effect. Those sorts of things are all important, widespread, enduring, sustainable. All of those words are important in this work, and particularly important in our entire grant-making philosophy. We aim to make all of these values as clear as possible, especially if something that you're thinking about proposing doesn't feel like it fits totally specifically, but there might be another opportunity. We offer 3 grant pools a year, but there's also opportunity for conversation with our team to make sure that what you're doing or what you're proposing to do with our grant making process really fits into our values and philosophy. I hope that was helpful just to give a little background on where we are. There's a whole second page about our philosophy though, which is that we use 2 different kinds of grant making, both responsive and strategic principles. And this is other information which is helpful to know, mostly in that we're trying to assist grantees into turning their funded idea into reality. We are not a one and done foundation. We're not here to sort of give you money and see you in a year or two. We're here to support. There's referrals. We're happy to talk. I am here to be a resource throughout your time with me. This particular RFP also includes a requirement of a community of practice, which is once quarterly. In general, we're here to work collaboratively and supportively with our grantees to achieve success or to achieve impact. Both of those would be defined as success in our eyes. There are 3 types of grant making that we make: field building, capacity building, and strategic. We are particularly discussing field building and only field building this spring. And the next slide. Our community investment pool, SRE Network has invested nearly $6 million in grants and supporting advancing safety, respect, and equity with a focus on gender justice. Really exciting that we're here now, and also a quick glimpse in our history. There is a lot of information available. We try to be really transparent. And on this next slide, you can see our full grant making history. Every grantee we've ever made is also on the website. Every grant we've ever made to every grantee, is on the website. We are very transparent in all of those experiences. Keep in mind also, if you are applying for a grant, everything that we do, we like to be transparent and clear about what is happening. So if you are not in a place where you could be on our website being shared publicly, those sorts of things, those are the kinds of grants we are currently making. And if that's not currently in alignment, it's just something to keep in mind. And now we're going to sort of jump into the grants process. This is going to be a lot of information. I just want to say again, everything's on the website, everything's in the RFP. There will be an email. This will be sent out to you afterwards. It's a lot of information. And there will also be time for questions after I go through all of this. So the field building grants process, it's really helping member and affiliate projects build the field. So what is field building? It's a collective approach to creating a more equitable ecosystem through investments in projects that have a potential for wider ripple effects for positive impact. Thinking about our grant pools, we think of it in contrast to our fall cycle, which is the internal capacity building. So if you think of those as 2 sides of the same coin, moving the work forward, this is really outward facing, where internal capacity building is really internal to organizational focuses. So this, great. So in particular, we're focusing on a few funding areas with this field building grant initiative. As I mentioned before, these are gender-based efforts and broader safety, respect, and equity culture change efforts. I'm going to say a few things about gender-focused efforts. If the work that you are proposing to do is in general supporting a community, a broader safety, respect, and equity culture change effort, and there is not currently a targeted population, excellent. This is not a, you have to do both. This is a, if you are choosing a beneficiary, we are interested in projects that choose women as a primary beneficiary, and we are interested in broader safety, respect, and equity culture change efforts. That is not to say if you have chosen a different primary beneficiary, you would not be eligible. But it is worthwhile thinking through how that may affect the marginalized population that we have identified as women within this community. If you have additional questions, if you're not sure if your project will fit, I'll mention a number of times that everyone who applies for this grant opportunity is required to have a meeting with me. mostly to make sure that you're on the right track and your application is as excellent as possible, but also to provide one-on-one questions, anything that we can do to provide clarity on this process. So if you are not certain that your opportunity, your proposed project would fit well into what we are looking for, feel free to still book a time, and I'm happy to talk through what that opportunity could look like, or shoot me an email. There's lots of options in terms of time to talk and how to have that conversation, but we want to make sure that every application that comes in is squarely in at least one of these two funding areas. On that note, we also want everyone to know that we know, and also know that many projects focus on the multidimensionality of individuals. Just because we have a focus on women as a primary population and primary beneficiary of work does not mean that women, that's a huge category. That is a huge category. And there are a lot of different ways in which we hope that folks are thinking about and approaching that work. And we understand that structural bias and inequity really functions in a multidimensional way. And we are hoping that organizations who are applying for these grants have not only a sense and understanding of that multidimensionality and the way that people show up in a multitude of ways, but also are incorporating that understanding into their projects and into their applications. We are looking for projects that clearly understand that this is reality, that people are multifaceted and projects could and should be multifaceted. And we are really looking for projects that demonstrate that understanding. Okay. So a little bit about our total pool is that we are expecting to award a total of $600,000 to between 5 and 8 grantees. That means the average grant will be about $50,000 over 1 to 2 years. As I've mentioned, we are having individual conversations with me about this work. So if you are anticipating a significantly larger or smaller request, we would love to talk about it. That's not to say it's off the table. It truly isn't, but it's worth a conversation with me about that number. I'm going to therefore suggest it, as you're coming into a conversation with me, to have a number in mind. Just so we can start that conversation someplace. We do require a project budget, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but just something to keep in mind, like that meeting is a good time to have that discussion. Just a note as well, to be eligible, all organizations who are, just a reminder that you have to be either a member for at least 6 months or a new SRE affiliate organization. Now that next slide, sorry about that, Julian. So who are network members and affiliates? They're organizations who are really committed to being on this journey with us. There is a standard self-assessment that happens with your application or your renewal process. And it's really about joining a learning community and being committed to this work. We also believe that it sends a strong message to your organization that you're committed to SR&E workplaces and communal spaces. We're excited to have all of you join us on this process. If you are not yet in that conversation with us about either membership or affiliate status, we understand there's a lot of different reasons why you could be on that journey. If you would be joining us as a member and you have not yet, we do require 6 months of membership unless there's extenuating circumstances. Again, we're here to have conversations, and we're here to figure out what is the best fit. And we do provide these 2 major buckets of funding, field building and internal capacity building, every year. So if this year is not a good fit for a variety of reasons, it doesn't mean you're out of the running. It's just 2025, which is a thing I've never said on Zoom before, 2025. Really excited about that. Affiliate status is new. I know there might be some questions. I believe our go-to guru for all of those things, Samantha Weil, is online, but I'm not positive. If not, I'm happy to connect you afterwards. There's a lot of information also available on the website, which I believe was just dropped into the chat. Excellent. So a few notes before we launch into really the heavy talkless paperwork of it, is that there's some special considerations with this particular round. The first of which is the train the trainer model. We are very excited to see train the trainer models, and we also are looking for projects that have data available to show the effectiveness, not only of the training project, but of not only of the modality itself, the plan in place, but also of training trainers. If you have never trained someone to do this before, we would like you to think through what it could look like. How do you know? Will it be successful? What would that training modality look like? This is something that we have funded significantly in the past and we're very excited about, and also know that there's a lot of pitfalls in this kind of programming. So we just want to make sure that if this is the modality that you are approaching, that you're showing us the effectiveness of sort of every step of the way. Again, happy to talk more about that if that's particularly the project you are working through or thinking to propose. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that we're looking for a little bit of additional information around the effectiveness of those programs. The second piece of that is around curriculum development and accessibility. SRE Network is based on and committed to the accessibility of knowledge, and understand that intellectual property is not necessarily something that is easy to grant, both in terms of granting and also in terms of offering us intellectual property rights is confusing and enters into a whole legal discussion that is worthwhile having one-on-one. Basically, the question is if you were thinking of developing research, intellectual property, curriculum, something of that nature, to plan to discuss in your application, how are we going to know that that information exists, and how are other people other than ourselves as the funder accessing that information? There is on the next slide, there's actually a good example of that. I lied. There are some other really good examples, but one of those in particular is also the Us2 publication, which is currently offered as open access to anyone on the web, and we have supported them in previous grant making to complete that research and that publication. There's also some other opportunities that we have funded previously. This list is really just a very short demonstrative list. There's lots of different topics, and we're also really excited for both projects and proposals that cover multiple topics and innovation. Innovation, especially in field building, is always exciting. While we are looking for stability and proven success, we also always love to see new projects, new ideas, and new ways to take this issue on. We're really looking forward to sort of both of those pieces. And again, proposals can cover multiple topics. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about dates and then a little bit about paperwork. Not our favorite topics, but things that we want to make sure you know are that all letters of intent are due March 8th. There is, we call them spring grants, not because of when you do the work, but because of when we do the work and when our grants committee does the work. This is also available on our website, but I want to make sure that you are aware that March 8th is a pretty hard deadline for us. March through May, our grants committee is doing a lot of work. And if you are moving on to the second round, which is not guaranteed because we anticipate this round to be significantly competitive, which I'm not sure is the right adjective for that, but a very competitive experience. We anticipate those who are moving to the second round have a one-on-one grants committee interview. That means someone from our committee will call you with any questions they might have from the application, representing the committee, and having a conversation. It usually lasts about an hour. We've received feedback that they're not terribly formal, that they are pleasant and help both sides understand what we're looking for. So know that that is a part of this work and is not guaranteed for everyone who applies. We are anticipating that final notifications will be going out early to mid-June, and then we move into what we refer to as our legal document review. You'll send us things like your 501c3, your budget, which we'll talk about in the next round, and that has to go through our legal and financial review to make sure that the granting moves forward beautifully. I want to say with great confidence that that means that all grant agreements will begin July 1st, unless there's something going on in that legal review, which would not allow that to happen. We usually have payments out. So it's paperwork signed and payments out and dispersed within the first 2 weeks. So this grant cycle is on a July 1 to June 30th cycle. If you are applying for a 2-year grant, same cycle applies. We are looking for grants that are a 1 or 2 year. We have previously allowed, and some of you might have, grants that are sort of off cycle. We're really trying to move all of our grantees onto 1 of 2 cycles. So July 1 will be the official grant agreement start date. Great. I think that might have been a lot of the fun information for this. Also, a plug, which I will mention later, is that early June is also our convening, June 4th and 5th in New York City. There'll be more information about that at the end of this, but I want to make sure that you all know that you're invited. Okay. Let's start talking a little bit more about the paperwork and what we're looking for. To apply, you have to have a meeting with me, and then you have to submit your letter of intent. All organizations will need to use our new award force portal. We're still considering it new because it's only our second round with them. I will say we received fantastic feedback about the ease of it. In the fall, everything is uploadable. We ask for a little bit more paperwork, which I will talk about momentarily, but everything will go directly through that. If you're having award force portal specific issues, please reach out to Julian, who will be on many emails to you after this, but I just want you to know that there's someone in your pocket, a tool in your tool belt, if you're having issues with that portal specifically. All right, so what's in a letter of intent? So a letter of intent is a lot about the project and a little bit about paperwork and formal paperwork processes. We want to know who you are, your annual upwriting budget for your entire organization, the total amount requested over up to 2 years, and then what are you doing? Why are you doing this particular project? What need are you addressing, and what is your focus area with your project? We would strongly suggest that you talk about how you've come to the conclusion that this is a gap. Have you assessed it? How do you know this is a communal need? Do you know that this specific intervention will move the needle? Have you done it previously? Have you seen it done previously? If you are recreating the wheel for your particular side of the population or of the world, excellent. Can you share with us explanations, examples of how it's been successful in other ways? This field building grant is particularly for those who position themselves really as experts in the field who are doing this work. We want to know why this work is the work that we should be doing and why we should be investing in it. This is also a great time to talk about your organizational vision for this change. If this is not aligned with the rest of your work, this is specifically something that you're doing either in collaboration with another organization or in partnership or because of a need that you've identified, I strongly suggest that you include how this fits in with the rest of your organizational work. We also know that, we know because we've discussed a few times now that multidimensional and intersectional understanding is important. This would be a great time during that communal needs section to talk about that. How are different identities being represented and what could that look like in your proposed project? There's a few more things that we want to keep in mind. A project outline, which is how are you addressing this need, include an outline of methodology, experts, personnel, those sorts of things. We would like to see demonstrated in this time your track record of success or your expertise in this area and why we would feel confident that you would be able to move the needle and complete this work. We particularly ask for a separate, I believe, PDF, but I'm not sure at this moment, of your key personnel that is also included in the legal document review. So that is something that I want to highlight is really important to us, that you have the folks who are planning to have work on this project identified before you apply for this project. And then how are you telling if you've moved the needle? How is your impact going to be evaluated? What happens what are your short and long-term goals, and what happens if you're not meeting them on regular milestones or benchmarks? We are also looking for a full project budget. If you're applying for if you are applying in special circumstances for operational support, like general operating support, because your entire organization does only this, excellent. You should talk to me about that separately. But also, we are going to then ask for a full organizational budget. In general, we just want to see how the funds will be allocated, how you're intending to have that broken down in a number of ways. Applicants are welcome to use our budget template. The most important thing to know is that you are going to have to use the same budget template every time you do reporting. So if it is a 2-year project, pick a budget template that you are willing to stick with. Um, I say that because it's been a question we've heard a few times. So if the SRE budget template is the one that's right for you, it's on the website, it's on the portal. Great. If there's one that your fiscal sponsor or your CFO prefers, also excellent. We want to make sure that how the funds are being allocated and a general idea, especially if you're using consultants or something like that, what that breakdown is going to look like would be excellent. We're also asking for proof of your tax exempt status to be uploaded as soon as you put in the application. So like step 1, we also want the proof of your tax exempt status. There's a few ways to do this, especially for affiliate organizations, which are not required to be 501c3s. Fiscal sponsorship documentation is a way to do that. There's a number of other paperwork pieces that can serve that same need. If that is your case, because you are an affiliate organization, please prepare to talk to me about that during your meeting or shoot me an email to make sure that we are having that conversation beforehand so we have everything we need and all of our ducks in a row. Okay, that's a lot of paperwork and a lot of thinking that needs to go into this, and we're really excited about it. And we also want to make sure that you know exactly how we're going to evaluate these. Each of these evaluation criteria, there are 2 pages, are going to be directly listed to our committee. They will score each application using exactly this language on the first round of application. So if there is something that you feel you have not answered in our evaluation criteria, that should be a red flag to you. These are available on our website. They're also available on our portal. There's a number of ways to find these. If any of these are particularly confusing, I'm also happy to talk about them. I'm going to touch on them very briefly. It's about safety, respect, and equity, demonstration of need, innovation, multidimensional lens, which we've spoken about. On the next page, we've also got viability of the project, the demonstrated expertise in the field, impact, including evaluation and how you will be determining that impact, and sustainability. We mentioned sustainability. There's really 2 pieces of that that are worthwhile to know. One is that if there's a clear arc to sunsetting the project, excellent. If this is something you're going to do short term with these grant funds, that's an excellent approach, and we would love to see the plan for that. And if there is projected work past this proposed use of funds, we want to make sure that we also have that information of how that could be used in perpetuity. SRE is not often in the practice of continuing funds for projects over many years. We're also very new to the grant making game. This is only our 6th year, so we're not sure if that is true overwhelmingly, but that is something that we are determining with our strategic plan and our leadership. So something to keep in mind is that we are looking for either other funding or what will happen sort of phase 2 past the proposed use of funds. Sorry, it is not bolded. That was my mistake, but the last one here is measurement. We ask about impact, and we want to know how you will be measuring it as well. We understand that this work is sometimes vague and intangible, and we are still looking for how you are going to become to be coming to that information. So there's lots of different ways that you could determine to do measurement and viability of impact. And we're not prescriptive, we just want to know. And I strongly suggest that you think through this with your team, with the experts that you have, to make sure that it is something that is reasonable and viable. I say that because we will ask for it. If you tell us that you are going to do something like surveying, we will anticipate that we will see the results of that survey when it is appropriate. Those are all the evaluation criteria that are required for the first round. Again, I do anticipate this to be pretty competitive this round. Our recent applications have been admittedly much higher than they have been in previous years, which is really exciting. We're excited to see the work in this field change and grow in such exciting ways, and also know that that means that it will be very competitive, and that often that does not mean that it is reflective of your project not being successful or viable, but rather we are looking for a portfolio to move the organizations, to move the field forward. That's why we're thinking about it as a collaborative field building experience. So we are looking for a slate that will move the field forward together, and also across a number of different ways and means. I just wanted to reflect that this is going to be a sort of a portfolio that we are looking to put forward with our grant making. Excellent. We're gonna talk one more second about these meetings that are required. Again, meet with me. Let's talk about it. Not only because I want to hear what you're thinking, but also because we want to make sure that we are mission and value aligned with this project. And I am here in this process to help you be as successful as possible. I will also say that my calendar is booking up rather rapidly because of the nature of the competitive cycle. We do ask for you to meet with us at least 2 days before the final deadline is my preference. That again is March 8th. These are usually half-hour meetings, but if you intend to send me a copy of your LOI, have a draft, have a question, does this budget work? I'm happy to answer and look at all of those things. But no, there's only one of me on this team at this moment. So each of those take a little bit of time. This does say if you are having, if there is a trainer or consultant that is a part of this process, if you know you're going to hire a consultant for the entire time, you know that you're thinking about doing a train the trainer, we do suggest strongly that you have those conversations before you have with them before you talk to me, just to make sure you have some idea of budget and viability of project and schedule. All of those pieces are important. And we usually suggest that if that is the approach that you are using, that you have those conversations before you meet with me. Excellent. You can email me to schedule. There's an automatic scheduler. And it doesn't have to be this week in terms of meeting, but I would love to get you all on the calendar as soon as we can. Excellent. Next up is questions. I can only see some of you. I'm also going to take a second. I'm really excited again that you were all here, and I would love to hear if you have any questions. I have not looked at the chat. Allie, do you have any questions that you have seen come up that I should be answering now?
No, the only question was if the webinar is going to be recorded and people will receive slides, and the answer is yes.
Yes, we're anticipating that you will have the slides tomorrow morning at the latest, and this recording. Excellent. Other questions I can help you answer? It's nice to see your faces. Daniel, go ahead.
Hello there. I'm with a place called the Center for Contemporary Moose Star, which is brand new in its connection with SRE. And so a question that goes through my mind is just in general, would doing something more like on a smaller capacity building kind of grant to build a relationship and doing some internal assessment, would that be a prudent approach as opposed to jumping into a larger, like a $50,000 sort of grant?
It's a really good question. We try to think of our two grant pools, the fall and the spring funding, which is internal capacity building and field building, as very separate. We are one organization. We're looking to do the same things in the field. But for that reason, you can actually hold two grants from us simultaneously, both a fall internal capacity building and a spring field building simultaneously. Whereas you can't hold two spring field building grants overlapping. If the work that you are doing falls in line with our spring field building grants, there's no reason not to pursue that. I would say I don't have this number written down, but I believe about 50% of all of our grants are to new grantees. So every time, about half of them are to folks that we've never granted to before. That number is significantly higher in internal capacity building because we find that people often do the work and then are invested and feel capable to do more of that work on their own. But many of the projects that we fund are our first time relationship with our with the new grantee. Excellent.
Andrea, someone else asked, what does it mean to be an affiliate?
That's such a good question. So our affiliate track, Allie, I'm going to ask you to also tag that in the chat if you don't mind. The affiliate track is a newer one to us for those who really don't fit into the official membership model for a variety of reasons, whether they are not formally a 501c3, if they're fiscally sponsored or working as a consultant in this work, but want to be involved in our network to access our resources, but might be too small, too new, or not quite fully aligned with the work for a variety of reasons. We still want to make sure that there's an opportunity to be a part of this journey with us and also access things like the self-standard assessment. We usually have monthly events, all of those pieces. There's a lot more information available on our About Affiliates. It is a new track, so I probably also missed some pieces there. But you can also feel free to reach out to Samantha at srenetwork.org, who is our head of all things community management and is really an excellent resource for all of those pieces.
Andrea, if I can just add.
Yes, please do. Sorry, this
Hi,
is
everyone.
Shayna, our interim executive director.
My phone just rang. You laid it out really nicely. I'll just add that what's new about this, the affiliate option, is that it's for the first time also open to consultants, although consultants that are not 501c3s cannot apply for this grant unless they're partnering with an organization that is a member and affiliate that does have a 501c3 status. Or
if they're fiscally sponsored.
Right, or if they're fiscally sponsored. It is for Jewish organizations, which is what our membership is for, and it is for, and this is what's the part that's new, for organizations outside the Jewish community that specifically focus on safety, respect, and or equity work. Affiliates are welcome to apply for this grant cycle. They are not eligible for the fall field building cycle.
The fall is internal capacity building.
Sorry, capacity building. Thank you.
Great. I realize that's also a lot of new information. It is new with our strategic plan launch as of January 1. So there's lots more information available on the website at this moment. Excellent. Thank you, Shayna. Any other questions coming in, Allie? Excellent. Again, I'm also here to answer your questions. We've dropped my email a number of times in the chat, but I'm here to be your go-to person. If you've got questions, you want to set up, I say you want to set up the meeting. When you set up the meeting, I'm also here to be with you throughout this process, if and when you receive a grant, but also throughout this process. If you've got questions, if you would like me to maybe look at sections, if you're wondering if this fits in, if something's not making sense, like I'm here to be your go-to. And I'm available. The easiest way to reach me is Andrea at srenetwork.org, which is in the chat. Daniel, did you have another question?
Thank you for tolerating me again. So what I'd like to ask is, let's say the group that I'm with, the Center for Contemporary Musar, would like to look maybe a year out to a field building grant, but not this year for various reasons. Would a conversation with you be wise because your bandwidth is so limited? Would it be wise?
Question. Admittedly, it would probably be better. A conversation with like, it's always nice to talk to people about the work that they're doing, but probably after March 8th would be the best time for me. If you're not anticipating applying this cycle. I will say that we are with the strategic plan and some of the infrastructure that some of you who have been with us a long time might see as very new from us, that it's a little bit more structured, a little bit more clear than it has been in previous years. We are anticipating our spring field building next year to be very similar in terms of evaluative criteria and eligibility requirements, as well as grant size and grant pool size.
Thank you.
Absolutely. If you're also making a decision between 2024 or 2025, which grant pool is right, feel free to get on my calendar earlier. I'm here to be flexible and supportive. I'm also happy to answer those questions via email if that would be easier to determine that. Great. Other questions? Excellent. I assume you all will have lots of questions when you're in one-on-ones with me as well. And if you're like, I don't have questions, I'm worried about what we're going to talk about for a half hour, don't worry, I will have questions. Please don't worry about that experience. I'm also sure that by that point, we'll probably have more questions about your LOI, about paperwork, about those sorts of things. So if you are worried about coming into that meeting with me without a lot of information, don't worry about it. We are still required to have that meeting. We have never done this. That's such a good question, Emily. We've never done this particular type of grant application for field building in this formal way before. We've done it in a series of different ways. We've done renewal grants, we've done particular intersectionality grants. So this is sort of a combining of a number of fields and a number of ad hoc and responsive grants that we're realizing we need to do, or we wish to do, to see the work that we wish to see in the field every year. I am anticipating 30 grant applications. And also I pretty much make that number up. But that's about what we're seeing. It's a little bit lower than we see in the fall. But based on the number of meetings that I already have scheduled, it's probably somewhere in that ballpark. Excellent. So I'm gonna go ahead and put one more slide up with information. And then I'm going to stop. I'm going to say thank you. With that, one more, thank you for joining us. There's also 2 big events coming up, which we're really excited about. The first of which is for those organizations who have already taken our SSA. We have on February 28th an opportunity to deepen your understanding of how your SRE network standards for creating safe, respectful, and equitable Jewish workplaces and communal spaces can really serve as a roadmap and guideposts for your organization's work. That is February 28th and going to be added in the chat. We're also really excited that we are going to see folks in person for our convening in New York City, June 4th through 5th. There's a lot more information coming out really soon. There's just a come join us on our website at this moment, but we hope that you're holding those dates. And we're really looking forward to seeing you in person. So at this point, I'm going to say thank you one more time, and we're going to turn off the recording, but I'll go ahead and stay in the room if folks have other questions.